I hope you're having a great magical day where you are, as I'm having a good morning where I am. I'm actually sitting outside on the front porch enjoying the morning as I consume my morning cup of tea. I like to sit outside in the mornings on days like this and just enjoy the view of nature and just the peace and tranquility of quietness. The kids are back to school, and I just like these, these types of mornings where I can just come out here and sit and have a little bit of quiet time before I have to get dressed and head into work. This morning I got to teach a exercise class at 10, so I thought I'd come out here and do my Q&A video for y'all. Thank you so much for all the questions. They were awesome. I liked them a lot because they were life and Disney questions, and that's what my channel is about, everyday life and a little bit of Disney in there. So I got some really good questions, and I thought we would get started on Instagram first, and then head over to Facebook and check out those questions. So Lucy, and I'm just going to go by first names, but Lucy wrote, "You and Dan have been married for a long time and still seem to love each other's company. What's your secret to a happy marriage? Also, what was your favorite trip you ever took, Disney or non-Disney, and why?" So this particular question, because it talks about my marriage, I wanted to run it by Dan just to make sure he and I were in agreement to talk about this on YouTube, because this is a question where it's kind of like really dipping into life a little bit for me. So I just kind of wanted to pass it by him first, just to make sure that he felt comfortable with me talking about our marriage on YouTube. But Dan and I, if you're new to our channel, or my channel I should say, we have been married for 26 years. We just got done celebrating 26 years this past February. And the trip vlogs that you're seeing were from our 25th wedding anniversary trip that we took to Walt Disney World to celebrate 25 years. I don't have the perfect answer for that, but I have the answer that works, I guess, for Dan and I. I mean, this is what we practice within our marriage. This is what works for us. So I just want to make sure that you understand that I'm not saying that all marriages have to work this way and all couple relationships have to be like this. The things that Dan and I do work for us. So for us, we're pretty much on the same page as we were dating, like courting, I guess you might say. We kind of like covered all the bases, I think, which is kind of normal when you meet someone. You kind of see if you have the same interest and the same likes, to find some, compatibility there. For us, it was more like, what's your social issue views, what's your political views, what's your faith-based views, what's your thoughts on kids, what's your thoughts on raising children. It was things like that we kind of talked about and got to know each other on, and we found ourselves to be very compatible in those areas. Now, Dan has certain characteristics about himself, and I have certain characteristics about myself, and both of us are unique in our own way. And a lot of areas in my life where I am weak, Dan is very strong, and a lot of areas that he might be weak on, I'm strong on. So we help to build each other up in a very positive way. And we not only do we carry that as individuals, but we kind of carry that over into our marriage, and it helps strengthen that. Dan and I also lean on our faith a lot. We have disagreements just like any other couple. I mean, couples have their disagreements. And while the disagreements can be an issue, both of us feel how you respond to that disagreement is vital. It's very important, because it kind of more or less dictates the outcome and in the path. So we try to be very respectful. We strive for that, to be respectful towards one another, to have open communication with one another, to always validate the other person's, you know, feelings, okay? To make, you know, to make it aware, not only to yourself, but to make it aware to them that their feelings matter and that their feeling is important, and just constantly keeping that line of communication open. Through the 26 years of marriage, Dan and I have learned that you have to be proactive in your marriage, and you have to, it's not something that just comes easy. You have to be proactive and have a willing heart and a willing to give of yourself, like 1,000%. And just really more or less be proactive. We get along great. Like I said, there's a lot of gifts that Dan has in his character that that he brings into the marriage. And from what I understand about Dan, he says I have a lot of gifts about my character that I bring into the marriage, and those gifts complement us back and forth. It's kind of like ping pong, going back and forth. Our gifts complement each other and help us to be a one in cohesiveness within our marriage, and to grow in a positive direction. And then, like I said, we just really lean on our faith, and we're proactive in that as individuals, because your faith walk is an individual journey, but then we take our individual walk in faith, and then we carry that over into our marriage, and that also helps us with any challenges or any hurdles that, you know, we may face. So I hope that more or less kind of answers your question. But yes, it's learning how to work together as a couple for the good of your marriage, and it's not always about, you know, give and take. I know for Dan and I, it's not about giving and taking. It's about giving and giving and giving. You know, I grew up with a dad who taught me that if you're gonna give just to get, then your intentions behind the giving are self-centered. In other words, you're only gonna give for as much as you're gonna get back. And he said, and if that's the case, then you shouldn't be giving at all. And for Dan and I, it's not tit for tat. It's not, well, if I do this, then you're going to do this for me. Or I did that for you, so you should do this for me. For us, it's not like that. It's just you give, and give. And a lot of times what happens is, guys, with anything, if you just give and expect nothing in return, inadvertently, whomever you're giving to usually will just reciprocate that. And for Dan and I, it's reciprocated, and before you know it, both our needs are being met. And I don't know, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. So hopefully that answers part of your question, Lucy. So the last part of Lucy's question was, what was your favorite trip you ever took? And I had to think about that one, because I have a lot of great, you know, favorites. I have a lot of favorites. I have to say, when we took the boys to Disney World, and they hadn't experienced Disney, and just seeing how mesmerized they were, it reminded me of when I was a kid and how I was so overwhelmed. I mean, when you see your kids experiencing something that you experienced as a child, and you see their excitement and you see their joy, I don't know what it is. It does something to a parent's heart. It does something to a mother's heart. And I remember when I just saw their joy and their excitement for the first time, it kind of like brought a tear to my eye. And I remember Dan saying, are you getting a little nostalgic there? And I'm like, yeah, because when you see your kids just running around the same resort that you grew up running around, and you're seeing that for the first time, I mean, as a kid, you never think, oh, when I come back as an adult, I'm gonna see, you know, my kids running around here. You just don't think like that as a kid until you actually experience that magical moment yourself, and you're like, wow, my kids are like in the resort that I'm in, and they are having a blast. So I have to say my favorite trip was the first time that they walked into that Polynesian resort, and the look on their face, I had the same look. And when they looked at that atrium, because it's just been a couple of years since they changed the lobby, so when my kids saw that big waterfall and saw all the plants, and they're just like, wow, you know, I was like, I had the same wow factor. So it had to be the first time we took the kids, you know, to Disney World. That was very, you know, the best trip, because it was their very first experience. Emma wrote, what is your favorite Disney memory? I do have a big Disney memory. So back in the set, well, still to this day, Disney provides people who stay on property. I don't know which hotels offer it, but they do have in-house babysitting, where a cast member will come to your resort room and babysit your children for you. I don't know what resorts offer that service, but it is made available, and you can go online and check that out and read different reviews on it. Back in the 70s, they still offered that service. Now, my parents always had a night out where they had like a dining reservation, and my brothers and I would go to Neverland, which was located on the Polynesian property. It's now called Leo and Stitch. It's like a play center for kids, and it used to be called Neverland, and it was always Peter Pan themed. And we would go there in the evenings, my brothers and I, because my parents would have one night out by themselves for dining reservations to kind of have an adult night out. Well, my brothers were getting older, so they weren't going to Neverland, and my parents had something else planned for them. Well, this particular trip, it was back in the 70s, this particular trip, my parents didn't schedule Neverland for me, and I was disappointed because, I mean, I didn't care if my parents had a night out. I was going to Neverland, okay? So, and Peter Pan, you know, came to visit you. You know, someone dressed up in Peter Pan would come and visit, you know, in the evening and play with the kids in, you know, the play area. And they always had activities for you, and they had snacks. It was always a great time. Maybe if you ever used it in the 70s and you're watching this video, you know what I'm talking about. But this particular trip, my parents did not schedule me to go to Neverland, and my mom had told me on the evening that they were going out that she said, Rachel, you're not going to Neverland tonight. And I'm like, well, why not? I love going there. And my parents told me that, and my brothers knew of the special surprise, but my parents said, we got an in-house babysitter to come and babysit you, and we thought we'd give that a shot and try it out and see if you like it. Well, they said it's going to be a very special guest, is what they told me. And I was kind of disappointed I wasn't going to Neverland. But when there was a knock at the door, my parents told me to go answer the door. And I did. And it was my babysitter for the night. And guys, the babysitter, I don't know, hopefully you believe me on this, because I am telling you the truth. It was Cinderella. It was a cast member dressed up like Cinderella coming to babysit me for the night. Now, I don't think cast members dress up in costumes anymore to come do in-house babysitting. Maybe it was something they did in the 70s, or maybe it was something my parents paid extra for, but Cinderella came all dressed up. It was a cast member dressed like Cinderella. She had the dress on, she had her princess crown on, and she had a basket with her filled with goodies and activities. And she came in, I don't know how long she babysat. She babysat long enough for my parents to go out and to have a nice evening. And it was a blast. It was a blast because she was dressed like Cinderella. And till this day, Dan, when I tell Dan that story, he always says, now I know why you're such a princess. You spent way too much time with Cinderella on your own. But yes, it was in the 70s when my parents had that service provided for me, and the cast member was dressed like Cinderella, and I'll just never forget it because it lasted, it left such a lasting impression on me. And I have to say, I think that's when my love for Disney just really like blossomed, because I mean, who has Cinderella come to their, you know, their guest room, you know, on the trip to babysit. So, you know, it was great. I can't remember everything we did. I do remember we had colors and coloring books, and we had snacks. She had brought snacks into the room with her. So I do remember that, but that was very, very memorable for me. So the next question comes from Meg. Where are you dining in December while you are in Disney World? So I do plan on doing a separate video on that. I know some of you are very anxious to find out what our ADRs are, and I am anxious to do that with you. I hope to do that sometime in September to get that uploaded to y'all. We have a trip to New York coming up, and when I get back I hope to sit down to get that out to y'all. But I believe I booked a total of 16 dining reservations. That's the most I've ever booked for a trip, so I am anxious to share that with y'all, so stay tuned for that. And then Haley put, do you plan to ever move closer to Disney? That is something that Dan and I have talked about. Currently, though, we would like the boys to finish schooling here in the area. We belong to a really great school district. And not only that, being retired military, our kids have had to move from different bases. And now that Dan's retired, we don't have to move so much. So the kids don't have to sacrifice friendships and having to transfer from school to school, because when you're a military family and you're raising kids, those kids have to be very disciplined, because they gotta be able to accept moving from base to base. They gotta accept mom or dad being deployed, and all these things are out of their control, and yet they have to be acceptable to it. So in a sense, they become disciplined and matured in that way. But now that Dan's retired, we're not in a position where we have to move. So to think about the kids and give them that consistent stability of staying in one spot during the rest of their schooling, we are definitely staying put. If we exercise the thought of possibly moving to Orlando, it wouldn't be until Brenton graduates, and we do have 5 more years. But it is something that Dan and I have talked about, because there is job opportunities for him for what he does in his job career field available in Orlando. And actually he has gotten a couple of current job offers, but has turned those down because the kids' needs do come first right now. So the next question, let me see, comes from Paris. Paris asked 2 questions. What are your favorite things to purchase when you go to Disney? And what made you decide to create such beautiful mini ears? So first, my favorite thing to shop for when we go to Disney is Disney, Dooney, and Burks. I love Disney, Dooney, and Burks. I love everything about them. And I don't know. I love to look at all of them. I love to more or less kind of like figure out which one I want to buy for the trip. So I spent like the first couple of days kind of looking at the different ones. I love going to the Cherry Tree at the Co-op in Disney Springs, because they have, oop, there's a fly. They have such a large selection. So does Mouseketeers in Epcot. They have a big selection too, but I definitely have to say that it's more geared. My favorite thing to purchase is Disney, Dooney, and Burks. And then of course, I love looking at all the Disney handbags. So I'm going to go with Disney handbags and the Disney wallets. Those are like my favorite things. And then what made me decide to make such beautiful, you know, mini ears? It was this last trip, Dan and I actually videoed it. Dan and I went to we were in Epcot, and I actually filmed this in a video where I showed you Tink's Garden in Epcot, because Dan and I went during the Flower and Garden Festival, and I showed you Tink's Garden, and I thought that was so beautiful. Just all the beautiful flowers, and there was butterflies, and there was a statue of Tinkerbell. It was in the showcase in the England area. And I was just observing it. Dan had to go use the restroom, and I was just observing the beautiness of that. And after he came out, he and I were talking one-on-one. I'm just like, look how beautiful this is. And Dan was like, it's just all beautiful, because we had never gone to Disney during the Flower and Garden Festival. And I told Dan, I said, you know, Disney really needs to like make some couture ears. They need to make like ears geared towards like just being a little more couture. Like do like Tink garden ears with beautiful flowers and lace and pearls and crystals and sparkle and butterflies. And Dan said, well, why don't you make a pair? And I'm like, I don't know how to make mouse ears. I can't make a pair. And it goes to one of those things where I was talking about in marriage, where you're strengthening the other person. He's like, honey, you can do anything you set your mind to. You know that. You're creative. And I'm like, I don't even know how to, like, I would have to sew those. And I was just, you know, I don't know. I would have to think about that. So, I mean, that's when I went home and I kind of just started thinking. And I said, okay, I'm going to give this a shot and I'm going to see how this works out. I'm going to make a pair and, you know, teach myself how to do this. And before you know it, Tink Garden Ears came to life, and I posted those to social media, and I ended up selling 2 of them. And I was like, oh my magical word, people like these ears as much as I do. And it just kind of evolved from there. But I definitely have to say it was me being at the right place at the right time at the right moment, and Dan encouraging me for me to be able to zone in on that creativity side of me. So yeah, it all started in Epcot at World Showcase in England. So I'm gonna head over to Facebook. Okay, Abby had put, what are your dining choices for your December trip? So like I said, I will be doing a video on that sometime later in September to talk about my ADRs. And Alexis put, what are the reasons you chose the Polynesian as your home resort, and where would you like to stay that you've never stayed before? So Dan and I would like to stay at Fort Wilderness Lodge and the Yacht and Beach Club. And Dan has always wanted to stay in Epcot, and we both like the Yacht and Beach Club. We both like Fort Wilderness Lodge. I like the Grand Floridian a little bit more than Dan does, but he would be willing to stay there, so probably the Grand Floridian would be another one. And then, what are the reasons you chose the Polynesian as your home resort? I've been going there since I've been a little girl, and there's no question that that was going to be our home resort. When you grow up going to Disney every year since you've been 5 months old, and you enter that resort, it does feel like home to you, because you know the ins, you know the outs, you don't get lost, you know, because you know where everything is, and you have such fond memories. Like I have such fond memories of, you know, going to the Polynesian every year. My brothers and I knew that resort like the back of our hand. You know, we walked around the place as a kid, like, you know, you own the place. And we love the tropical feel it gives off, that Polynesian feel, that Hawaiian feel. We love the smells. We love the Hawaiian culture that they, you know, bring into the Polynesian there. But more importantly, my kids love it. And to see my kids like walking down the same stairs in the ceremonial house that I walked down, or seeing them walk to the monorail, the same path that I took, or eating in Kona. Sorry, there is a garden truck going by. It's making a little noise. But to go into Kahuna and dine there, I dined there. To see my kids swimming in the volcano pool that I swam in, and walk on the beach that I walked on, and walk those paths, and stay in the same log houses, even though they moved the names around and changed the different names of the log houses. But to see them experiencing Disney the way I experienced it, and to do the things that I did at that resort, there was no question that that was going to be our home resort. We have too many memories there, and I can only hope and pray and pray that we are blessed that Dan and I can eventually bring our grandchildren there, because then that's 3 generations walking around that Polynesian, and that in itself, it can be a very magical experience. So yes, hands down, that is why we chose the Polynesian as our home resort. When did your love for Disney begin, and what time of year is your favorite time to visit Disney? So I have to say that when was your love for Disney? I have to say that trip because I was 5 years old, and that's when my memories of Disney started to begin, is when that cast member came and babysat me. And she was dressed like Cinderella. I was just like, I can't describe it. I was just like, this place really is magical. Like, that's what I thought. I'm like, oh my goodness, this place really is magical. They can make anything, you know, magical. And I guess it was experiencing that magical moment. It just had a profound, I guess, impact on me, that my love for Disney just carried over through the years, and it never left. And believe it or not, guys, I'm the only one in my family that is Disney, and Dan is the only one in his family that's Disney. We don't talk a lot of Disney to our families because none of them are into it. Believe it or not, even though my brothers went every year as kids, they are not into it. It stuck with me. I don't know why, but I'm glad it did. And, you know, now we take our kids, but it had to go all the way back to that first time. Like I said, I was 5. That was my first time having a memory, okay? I don't remember trips when I was 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. When I start talking about Disney, my mom and dad, you know, would say, oh, that happened when you were 5, or that happened when you were 6. So that tells me that's when my memories started to come into play. So, though, you know, yeah, when I had Cinderella come to the room, that had to be when my love for Disney just, you know, kicked in. And Dan and I do talk Disney to people, but we talk Disney to people who like it like we do. And of course, I have you guys, and that's one of the reasons why I have my channel, because you guys love Disney as much as I do, and we can all be excited about the magic together. And what was the other? Did I miss anything? Okay, what time of year is your favorite time to visit? Kathy also asked. We love December. December is our favorite time. We love the Christmas. We love the decorations. We love the smells. I love seeing the Polynesians, trees decorated all up tropical. And when you walk into that Grand Floridian, guys, that gingerbread house just makes that whole lobby smell so good. Dan thinks they put something in the air vents. I don't know, but it smells so good. And the beach club, when they put that gingerbread carousel, it's beautiful. And then over at the Contemporary, oh, and Fort Wilderness Lodge, the big tree and the atrium, just like at Animal Kingdom. I mean, I love it all. All the decorations, even though it's not as cold, it still doesn't take away from the feeling of Christmas and just all the beautiful decorations. And we love looking at everything. So it has to be December. The next question comes from Susie. How did you and Dan meet? So Dan and I met on a blind date through my brother. My brother introduced us. They worked at the same, in the same, like, commander squadron, or they worked in the same squadron, I should say. And it took Dan had saw my picture. My brother invited him over to his house, and Dan saw my graduation picture on the wall and had asked who that was. And my brother, being my protective brother that he was and still is, I guess, I mean, I had 2 brothers and a dad. It was difficult to date in my house with 2 brothers and a dad. But Dan saw my picture, and he asked my brother who that was, and my brother said, you know, that's my sister. It took Dan 3 times to get my telephone number. After Dan asked the 3rd time, my brother called me and asked me if Dan could call me. I wasn't really into dating at that time. I was going to college full time, lots of credit hours, and just working part-time, and I really wasn't into like dating anyone because I was focusing on school. But based on my brother just kind of sharing information a little bit about Dan with me, I was like, okay, you know, based on what you're saying, he seems like, you know, somebody I would, you know, possibly, you know, take an interest, you know, in. So Dan called me, we set up a date. Dan did have to cancel the first date. He got really sick. He developed mononucleosis. Hopefully I said that right. I was a little upset about him canceling. At first I thought he was faking being sick and he just wanted to cancel. But my brother, later on during the week, after he canceled on a Saturday. Later on during the week, my brother had came over to my parents' house to pick up something, and he was telling me that Dan really was sick and they had to put him into Wolford Hall Medical Center because he had like 104. He had passed out in the living quarters where he lived on base, and they got him to Wolford Hall and they kept him for 2 days, and then they flew him home to Lancaster to where he could be home at his mom and dad's house for his mom to take care of him, because he was just way too weak. Because mono takes a toll on your immune system. It can actually take a toll and damage your organs as well. So it is a very serious, you know, illness, and some people actually die from it. So he stayed home for about 2 weeks. During that 2-week period, he had called and apologized again for canceling. I felt bad for being upset about him canceling because he really was sick. And I told him, you know, that at first I didn't believe him. But yeah, when he got back, we had our date, and then the rest is history. And now we've been married 26 years and have 3 amazing young men. Our boys, we just adore them. They're precious. Okay, Susie also asked favorite Disney resort, and I think I might know. The Polynesian. And as I said before, why? Because we just love it, and Dan loves it. I'll never forget the first time I took him into the Polynesian, because he had never stayed. When Dan went as a child, he stayed off-site. So him walking into the Polynesian on our first trip was his first experience, and I just remember him looking up at all the, again, it was when, you know, the old lobby was there, and he's just like, wow. And he just fell in love with the resort, and we love the new lobby, and he loves the tiki man. Okay, he loves the tiki man, but statue in the lobby. But yes, definitely the Polynesian is our favorite. An ideal time of year and length of Disney trips. I have been, the boys have only been in December with us. I have been in August. That's the time of year my family always went, and then Dan and I have gone in February. December is definitely our favorite, and Dan and I do enjoy February, and we would like to go again in February, especially during Flower and Garden, because we enjoyed that. But that's our ideal time. It just is. December is our ideal time. I was looking down at her question. And the length of the trip. This trip will actually be our longest trip, believe it or not. We've gone for, let me think, 6 days this and then a couple with the boys. We have gone 7. This last trip we went 7. This will be 8 days under Disney Vacation Club, because this will be our first trip as DVC. We're very excited. So I would have to say the 8 days, this will be our longest length, and that's why I have more dining reservations than I did in the past. So far it's been 7. This coming trip will be 8. And if you're new to my channel, guys, we are going December of 2018 this year. And we're almost at the 100 mark, which means the next day we'll be at double digits. And the boys are getting so excited. They cannot wait. Brenton, I told them I would pick him up. There goes that lawn care service guy again. Okay, I don't know if y'all can hear that. I apologize if you can. But when you go to pick up your child, they'll buzz, you know, the room and say, you know, so-and-so, your parents here to pick you up. Or they'll make a big, huge announcement over the speaker. And last year when Black Panther came out, one of Brenton's friends was going to go see it on a school day, and his mom came to pick him up, and the school secretary made a big announcement over the big intercom so everybody could hear, and it was so-and-so, your mom's here to pick you up to go see the Black Panther movie. And Brenton said you could hear the whole school go, ah, you know. He goes, Mom, because I'm going to pick up Brenton, or Zachary drives to and from school, and sometimes he'll bring Brenton for me, but I'm going to go pick up Brenton early, because our flight leaves early Saturday morning, and I want to have the kids come home a little early, and Dan's going to come home so we can go eat dinner a little early, and then come home and relax and try to get some sleep. I mean, who sleeps the night before a Disney trip? Everybody's adrenaline is so high, right? You can't sleep because you know, like, oh, in less than, you know, a couple hours, I'm going to be in Disney. You know, it's like your trip, you know, it's trip day, it's travel day, the favorite day. I love travel day. I don't know about y'all. But anyway, Brenton goes, when you come and pick me up, have the school secretary make the announcement over the intercom and say, you know, Brenton Anders, your mom is here to pick you up for your 8-day vacation to Walt Disney World. He goes, I'm telling you, Mom, the whole school will go, ah, you know. So I was like, baby, I will do that. He goes, she'll make the announcement if you tell her. So I was like, okay, I'll do it. So he's looking forward to that announcement being made. And as Zachary, who's a junior in high school, is like, I'm looking forward to just getting out of prison for 8 days, for an entire week. So yeah, he's looking for it. Our oldest will not be on this trip with us. As you know, he goes to college at a military academy, and he just cannot get the time off. So he will be missed though, but we are looking forward to it and getting very excited. So guys, those are all the Q&A questions I have for y'all. And I just thank you so much for submitting the questions and taking the time out today to watch this video. And feel free to leave comments down below and maybe share what your favorite resort is, or I would love to hear what your favorite memory is. I think sharing memories about Disney is magical. And again, you, the audience, I get to talk Disney with y'all and share Disney and just, you know, interact with y'all. And I really like that, because like I said, I only have a few people in my life, and Dan has a few people in his life that will talk Disney with us. So our families just, you know, don't, you know, go to Disney, or they're just not, I guess, Disney families, I guess. And that's okay. That's okay. Not everybody has to be a Disney family. But we just both love talking Disney with people. So yeah, leave comments down below. Share your memories. Share your favorite resorts. You know, share your favorite dining. Like, what's your favorite dining places to eat? And like I said, that ADR video will be coming out later in September. So guys, thank you so much for watching Life in Disney. Till next time, y'all take care. Y'all have a magical day and a magical week. And I will see y'all later, Mouseketeers. Bye, guys.